This video is for people who like giving prosy descriptions in their games. Because here's the problem with those. Let's say you've written a couple of juicy paragraphs describing this new location that your PCs are going to come to in tonight's game. It's got metaphors and word pictures, and it's got clever turns of phrase, but then they do something unexpected, as they will, and now the way that it's written doesn't quite fit, like maybe they're coming in from a funny angle, or they asked you earlier about some of this information, and it made sense to give it to them then, but now your description doesn't flow because parts of it would be redundant. So you scan over that description and try to repurpose it for what's happening now, and it ends up kind of broad strokey and hastily articulated, and you realize after the session that that description was a shadow of what it could have been. Now, adapting your stuff to what is happening right now is, I would say, the primary task of the game master. But descriptions can be the hardest thing to adapt, because if you're like me, if you're the kind of writer that I am, when you write something that's beautiful and powerful, you usually write it in form of a paragraph, something that transcends how your voice would sound if you were just reading a bullet-pointed list of characteristics. But paragraphs have all those problems I mentioned before. It may not work to read them in your game, so what do? Well, you start using bullet points. But not just any bullet points. Now, I should stop here and say that this is not a video about how to write a good description or what makes a description good. There are already a bunch of YouTube videos about that. This is a video about a tool, about a description writing layout that will help you adapt your description to what's happening at the table. This is the layout I use. You can download it in the description. It'll be more gray font face for you to easily write over it. But I like to mentally break my description apart into as many elements as it needs. Like if the PCs are traveling through a desert to get to this big Arabian Nights city, one element would be the traveling through the desert itself, the sight, the feel, the sound, the monotony of it. One element would be seeing a city from a distance. What does it look like when it first comes into view? Another element would be getting close to it, the farmland and the suburbs around the main city. And another element would be entering the city itself. What do they see? What are the primary features? What are some important story foreshadowings that they don't know are important, but you're going to mention them here? And you may not always have a lot of details for each of those elements, but think of them separately. And then you can place your details here as short, grabby, prosy statements that don't have to be connected to each other in a paragraph that might not fit your game, but are instead separated into individual thoughts so you can find the one you want at a glance. And over here you got maybe the most important element of the description, the handoff. What do you say to let the players know the description is over, the cutscene is over, and now the gameplay is going to resume? Is it a certain detail? Do you have an event happen? Do you call for a roll? Do you hand them a map or another handout? All of that goes here. And up here I have an extra area of during your description if you want to engage the player creativity. If there's a new party, ask them who's on point in this journey and what is everybody else's role. Ask them which one of their characters might know this destination and what are his reasons for leading them there. You know, any kind of questions you want to put in to prompt player creativity and make them a part of this descriptive process. Then just give your description a name so you can find it easily during your session, and there you go. Now, earlier I said this is not a video about how to write a good description, but that being said, if you use this tool, if you sort your imagery into elements and details, you may find yourself writing better descriptions. Because those are the same tools that you should follow to write a coherent prose paragraph, you just might not think of it that way in that context. Like I said, writing descriptions like this is part of a system I developed for writing my own prep. I call them components, and I've got a playlist with a video for every conceivable component you could need in your game, with a download link in the descriptions. And so if this is something you think you would use in your game, go check those out. And if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. I do tips and techniques to help you take your game off the rails without losing track of where it's going. So stay tuned, stay creative, and I'll see you over there.